Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I am Sue Pittacora with Wavicle Data Solutions, and I'm delighted to be here today with Abhi Seth, Chief Enterprise, AI, and Data Officer and Vice President at the Boeing Company. Abhi, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So today we're going to explore how Boeing leverages AI and data to drive enterprise-wide data transformation, prioritizing quality and safety, and enabling people. So, Abhi, let's just jump right in. Boeing is undoubtedly a leader in technological innovation, and I'd love to just start by hearing your thoughts on the AI strategy at Boeing.
No, thank you. Thank you for the question. I think we have a tremendous history of driving technology innovation and AI. I think AI is not a new thing at Boeing. We have been applying AI in many different forms in all kinds of product development and customer enablement here at Boeing for decades. I think with the recent evolution of areas such as, high performance computing and generative AI, I think, the AI has got more of a, I would say, buzzword, I think becoming a lot more active. We have a pretty robust AI strategy, and a lot of the focus of that AI strategy is really driving, sustainable competitive advantage for Boeing, right? Our strategy is really focused on four key pillars here at Boeing. I think the cornerstone of our AI strategy is really the data foundation, right? Without data, you really can't go too far in driving your digital or AI strategies forward, right? So how do we master our data? And then the second is really around, platforms and infrastructure. So how do you really scale AI, right? So a lot of companies, of course, we want environments where we can experiment and then create, prove out different concepts. But then how do you quickly scale to create that impact at large scale, right? So your infrastructure becomes a really key cornerstone of that. And then really looking at, building the right talent and upskilling the capability across all of our practitioners on awareness of what is the art of the possible of AI, how do you identify the right problems, and then building a digital and AI savvy workforce across the company is kind of the talent becomes the third pillar. And the last one is really building, I would say, bringing in domain data and AI capabilities together to create more of a business capability, right? And that is differentiated, that helps move our strategy forward. So in that area, I think we are really looking at four key product family areas. So first one, of course, is safety and quality. How do we drive domain data and AI expertise to create capabilities around safety and quality so that we are able to actually drive enhancements there? Then we are looking at, second distinctive area is really engineering and manufacturing. The third one is supply chain. And then the fourth one is really customer support, and customer success and aftermarket, right? So those are kind of the four key areas where we are focused on building AI capabilities.
Right. So I guess just building off of that, Abhi, it sounds like AI is currently being used throughout the organization. Did you have some specifics you can give in terms of examples of how it's being used in manufacturing, supply chain, customer success, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I would just highlight, I think a lot of focus we have this, at Boeing really is really around safety and quality. And one of the things I wanted to highlight is really we have had a lot of quality stand-downs, right? In terms of taking a day to discuss, like, how can we improve quality? How can we improve, safety around our factories and in the manufacturing space? And we have got a lot of feedback from our, fellow mechanics. What we have done with that is, like, one of the key feedbacks, I just would like to give you example on a couple of things. So how do we really drive AI and generative AI capabilities to really condense and synthesize the feedback that we are getting, thousands of feedback? How do we really summarize what are the common themes, what are the common pain points, and being able to prioritize some of those pain points using AI? The second, and probably I would say a more pertinent one, is really one of the things that came up is our mechanics were having a hard time reading drawings on the shop floor, right? So as they're trying to go apply a work instruction and they're trying to go read a drawing on how to how to perform a certain assembly operation in the factory, some of our drawings were probably not as, some of the drawings in some areas were not as clear, and what we were able to do is apply computer vision to darken those drawings. previous process was really around how do we send a drawing back to Xerox and then physically darken it and then bring it back and rescan it. While we are able to actually apply computer vision in real time to actually darken those drawings and make readability easy. So now this is basically released to all mechanics. It's part of our production system just within short 3 or 4 months. And that capability, as you're trying to read a drawing, if there are certain things you want to enhance, you want to be able to better readability of the drawing, you're able to actually use that um, computer vision model real time in some of our applications. The other thing we are doing around quality is really how do we get visibility of quality across our site, and not just within Boeing sites, but across from our suppliers. So we are able to actually integrate quality data, not just from our factories, but also from our suppliers, so that we can drive real-time visibility of quality metrics um, and insights for our production workers, in real time.
Fantastic. So as I think about all of that, implementing AI at scale, often comes with unique challenges, especially with a company the size of Boeing. Could you share some of the biggest challenges you've had in terms of, how do you roll out AI solutions across the organization?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I think, so, if you think about, driving digital and AI, I think a big chunk of that is really driving the digital literacy of such a large company, right? How do we define to make sure that everybody's getting upskilled? So, and also I think when we're deploying some of these solutions to get an impact, one of the things we need to do is solve the right problem, make sure the solutions we are building are easy to adopt and easy to use by our end users. So I think that's kind of where a lot of that, you know, challenges kind of happen in terms of change management, adoption, and sustaining some of these capabilities while they are getting used. So what we have done for that is really, a couple of principles we have started to use is really start with the business problems. Instead of saying, hey, we are going to go do AI in this space, we really want to basically get forefront of what problem are we really trying to solve, right? And then who are the personas who have the problem, and getting those personas and users involved very early in our design thinking process on what would the solution look like. And really, I think what is undervalued in a lot of, I would say, in a lot of these applications is how important it is to really double click and truly understand the problem statement itself, right? So these are things that we really, emphasize on in our operating model is really spend time understanding the problem statement, talking to the end users, coming up with the solution with them, and involving them as we are building some of these capabilities. So when we are then doing a small pilot, right? A lot of this is really iterative and feedback driven. Once you do this user involvement and understanding of the personas early, it makes the solution, much more easy to adopt, and we basically get the right solution the first time versus having to, go build something in isolation and deploy it. And 9 out of 10 times it becomes a challenge. It's like, hey, we didn't really get something right. The other thing as we look at is really, I think a lot of the focus for AI capabilities too is really augmenting and enabling our workforce, right? And enabling basically the mundane tasks sometimes that the people need to do, right? So involving them and understanding what is their current workflow, and with the AI capabilities, what would be their to be workflow, right? And how does it unlock productivity? And not just productivity, but basically think about it as how do we make the right way the easy way, right? Are we making everybody's job easier? Are we making it simpler so they are actually they can there is no change management in effect involved, right? Because they love doing it because now it's much simpler. So that's kind of how we have approached it. The other thing I would say is, in terms of challenges, is really I think in the overall AI space, one of the biggest problems that I see is really, are you solving the right problem itself, right? I think we have so many opportunities in this space we could be solving. If you look at just in the manufacturing space or supply chain, a lot of these spaces in itself are very big. We have a limited amount of capacity to execute. And a lot of times we are always looking for problems that are at the intersection of, looking at how do they align with strategic priorities of the day, right? What is the most important thing we need to go solve for? What is the feasibility of solving it? And what is the size of impact, right? So if none of these three things these three things do not align, then most of the time they are not really the right problem to go solve, right? I think so. That's kind of how we do picking the right problem. And I think it's really training the community overall to figure out how do you go pick the right problem. And then in solving it, I think a lot of the focus we have done is really how do we segment the problem, right? I think some of these problems are too big. They have been around for a long time, right? I think just applying some AI pixie dust is not going to solve it. So really, I think thinking about problem decomposition, right? So how do you decompose the problem into small problems, and then how do you really solve, a meaningful portion of that problem and deploy a solution and see how it works? And by doing that, really gaining understanding of that subject matter or that domain. Really, so a lot of the focus we have is really, I think, domain teams, which is in AI, so that as these teams continue to work in manufacturing or supply chain or operations, they are actually gaining domain expertise in those areas over a period of time, building their relationships, understanding, what the challenges in that field look like, what does the data look like in those areas. So they are able to then come up with better solutions overall, right? And are able to actually create more of a roadmap view, right? It's not like we are not building point solutions. We are saying, hey, here is a problem. Let us do this solution and deploy it and see how it works. And let's build upon this as a version 2, right? And then build upon that. And then suddenly, you will see within, 3 to 6 months, we have multiple solutions that are building upon like the whole suite. And that whole, functional area is starting to get transformed, over a period of time. That's kind of our approach.
Yeah, I love how you talked about getting those users really closely involved and sort of falling in love with the problem, right? So you can really deeply understand it. That's great. So can you share some examples of some specific AI-driven initiatives that you've been able to leverage at Boeing to impact the business?
Absolutely. I think I talked about this example around safety and quality where we have deployed this, computer vision tool for helping our mechanics actually, leverage our drawings better. I'll talk about a few others. We are looking at, how do we write, I think a lot of work that we have at Boeing is really writing proposals or responding to customers, requests for information or requests for a proposal. And a lot of times, I think being an older company, our processes tend to be very, sometimes I would say we have an opportunity to simplify some of those processes and digitize some of those processes, right? I think that we can improve the cycle time and drive more throughput. So we are looking at, how do we looked at our response time process, and we are looking at how do we have around 1,000 procedures, for example, on how to respond back to, write a proposal or how to do this, right? Because we are a very process oriented company. But a lot of times, I think we are using generative AI to figure out how do we really create a co-pilot for a proposal writer, right? I think so. That is an interesting example that we are just piloting with around 60 to 70 people. We have so many procedures. It's hard for people to figure out, how to find the right procedure. So especially as you're coming in new, it can be overwhelming for you. So we are able to use now generative AI, and we've ingested and created a custom solution, which is basically a transactional, I would say a proposal co-writer, right? And that proposal co-writer, you can ask, hey, I have this kind of proposal. What are my steps to go respond back to a proposal? How do I do this? And it'll basically, it is trained on all of our processes. It can actually guide you on how to write the proposal back.
Fantastic.
Which is pretty cool, I think. And as we look at, we even did some time studies to figure out, is this truly benefiting? And what we are finding is among new users, it's around 90% reduction in time, because they are sometimes waiting to figure out where to even find this information, or waiting for an SME to be available, a subject matter expert to be available to guide them. And now they can find it at an instance. And then, more interestingly, I think people who have been around, I think as we did the study on how is it helping for people who are experienced, and actually we are seeing around 50% improvement in their cycle time, because even though they have been here for a while, there just are too many procedures to keep track of.
Sure.
So, they're able to actually, help with that. So, those are some examples that I would like to highlight. I think it also in the supply chain side, we are, actively working to figure out how do we predict supply chain risks, right? How do we then anticipate supply chain risk? How do we actually plan around it so that we can drive minimal disruption in our factories?
Well, Avi, I think that's a great way to wrap up and really talking about how your culture really embraces this and really just a great job today. Thank you so much for all your insights. Thank you for joining me today. Please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews.
Thank you.